Okay. Number 9 is asking you to find the inverse.
I think I forgot how to do this.
Okay. I'll do the first one then.
I would not know how to do this. Or it's just.
It's just probably been a while.
Yeah, I just don't know where to start.
Okay, so we got g of x is equal to negative 4
x plus
1. The first thing that I do is I change this to a y. And then to do my inverse function, I switch where the x and the y's are. So I'm going to say that x is equal to negative 1/4 y plus 1. And then I'm going to solve that equation for y. So I have to subtract 1 from both sides. And then I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of this fraction. So that would be times negative 4 here, and then times negative 4 there. So then I have y is equal to negative 4 times x plus 1. And I'm going to call this g of negative 1, because that's the inverse function. That's how you write inverse of g.
I thought that was a y.
I switched it from y to g there because that said g up there.
Okay.
And this is the check. If I take g of x and I plug it into g of x inverse, that's called a composite function. If I stick it in there and I end up getting x, then I've done the right thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm going to substitute in for x there. So it's going to look like negative 1/4 times 4 negative x plus 1. And then this is, sorry, that's not supposed to be plus, it's supposed to be minus. I messed that up. I wrote it right there and then I didn't copy it right. That's supposed to be minus. And then plus 1. So let's see what happens. When I multiply negative 1/4 times 4, what do you get?
Negative 1/4 times 4.
Mm-hmm.
1.
You get 1, so they cancel each other out. And so I'm left with x minus 1 plus 1. What do the plus 1 and the minus 1 do?
Cancel, so it's just x.
So it's just x. So g of negative 1x is equal to x. So I know that I have the right inverse function. That's the rule. Okay. So I want you to try a couple of these. So try 10.
So we minus 1.
Mm-hmm. Did you switch the x and the y? You see what I did? Look at mine.
Oh, yeah. I just wrote y.
So move that one first.
Minus 1. X. Here. Oh, yeah, X. Then do I divide by 2?
Divide both sides by 2. Mm-mm. Notice what I got. Notice what you got.
Oh, yeah, the y. Okay.
Now, how am I going to move that y up to the top? There's an easy way to do it and a hard way to do it.
Let's do the easy way.
Okay, you notice that both of these are fractions, right?
Yeah.
So if I flip this side, all I have to do is just flip that side. So I get y over 1. I'll actually show you that part because I just flipped that, right? Is equal to 2 over x minus 1. And that means that f of x inverse is equal to 2 over x minus 1. Now we have to do our check. So I want to do f of x negative and see if it's equal to x. Got to prove that. So how would I substitute that in? I want to see if you can actually do that.
Wouldn't you substitute the 2 over x1 for the y?
No. Okay. This thing here gets substituted there, where that x is.
Oh, okay.
So tell me what to write.
So 2 divided by 2 over x minus 1 plus 1. And 2 divided by 2. Is that where you...
Yeah. What does this bar mean?
To divide?
To divide. So I'm going to write it like this.
2 divided by 2?
Divided by 2 over
x minus 1. Can't you do like 2
plus
over 1 though?
Okay, what is the divided by sign? Can you divide by a fraction?
No, but I thought you could put a 1 there and just make it...
Oh, yeah, I can put a 1 here. I can put a 1 there. That makes you feel better. Yep. What's the rule for dividing a fraction?
They have to be the same denominator?
That's when you're adding.
Oh, yeah, crap. Keep, change, flip, or something. Yeah.
So I'm going to keep this. I'm going to say multiplied by, and then I'm going to flip that.
X minus 1 over 2.
And then this is...
Then the plus 1.
What happens to this 2 and that 2?
They cancel.
What happens to that negative 1 and that 1?
They cancel. So it's just x.
So it's just x. So we proved it. That proves it.
Oh, that was... What about that right there?
That's a multiplication sign. I'll put a dot there so you don't get confused.
Okay, I was like... Okay.
So remember, when you divide by a fraction, you can write it out to the side. This is actually kind of the last thing that we did.
Yeah.
Like last week, right? So write it out to the side and then do what you need to do. So, okay, I'm going to give you another one to do then.
Yeah, these are We did this earlier in the year, and that's what made my grade.
Well, you didn't have me, so we'll fix it.
And I went like every day during lunch, AP, and everything, and I still didn't understand it.
Number 11. So I'll write it here. So it's 2 over x minus 2 plus 3. And that's f of x. Okay, that's the first step. What's the next step?
To get that over there.
Gotta do one more step before that. What should the thing be equal to before you start moving stuff around?
X.
X. So switch the x and the y. Right. So just switch those two.
Why do you have to do all this like changing?
Because when you're doing the inverse means that all the numbers that were x numbers are now y numbers, and all the y numbers are now x numbers. Like if I have a point, and the point is 3, 4.
I think that's the confusing part right there, just changing that. That's just, I would always forget to do that, and could always count points off. That's one thing that I do remember.
Well, just remember that step. The very first thing that you do is just switch where the x's and the y's are. And I haven't even given you quadratics yet.
Okay.
But baby steps, right?
Yeah.
So when you're doing, like, let's say that this is my function f of x, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have a function that's the inverse of that, all you do is just switch where the x and the y's are.
Mm-hmm.
So this was your x and that was your y, and those two numbers just switched. So what would I write here?
4, 3.
That's all the inverse does. It just inverts it. It literally just switches it. Okay? So when you have a mathematical formula, that's what you're doing. You're just switching it.
So what would you need this for? Is there some certain thing that you...
Sometimes you need to know what the inverse function is because you'll have functions inside of functions. So I'll give you a prime example. You did a little bit of trig, right, before? Have you done trig at all?
No.
You haven't done sine, cosine, tangent, that kind of stuff?
That's trig?
That's trig. Yeah.
Oh, it is? Okay.
So let's say I have, this is something that you've probably done in geometry.
Yeah.
Let's say I have the sine of some angle is equal to, let's say, 1/2. So I know the actual number that I have, but I don't know what the angle is.
Okay.
So the inverse function says that I need to flip where these two things are. So I can say that my angle, theta, is equal to the sine inverse of 1/2. So if I stick that in my calculator, I actually get the number for the angle.
Okay.
So I'll know how many degrees the actual angle is.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of different functions that actually do that. Let's say I'm going to do a rotation of a curve, and I need to flip where the x and the y are. You did that in geometry too. That's the inverse.
Oh, so you would need this in, like, engineering.
Exactly.
To build, like,
you also need this in finance. So let's say that...
Oh, crap. That's what I wanted.
I know. So let's say that you have an ultimate goal of what you need, and you have some kind of formula that tells you how your particular investment strategy works, right? And you're trying to figure out exactly what you need to plug in, or how much money you need to save on a weekly basis, or what what your weekly goals have to be in order to get there, right? You could just invert the function because then you can find out exactly how much your goal should be each week so you hit it, so you make your goal for the year. And I'm dumbing that down because the equations are really complicated with exponents and stuff in it, but that's inverse. You have a bunch of information on one side, you have the actual answer, but you don't know a piece of it. And so you have to switch the two to figure out what that extra piece is. And that is actually something that you will use in hospitality. You'll need to know that.
I was going to do like hospitality and then also major in finance as well because I want to do something in the stock market.
Right.
That really.
You want to be a hedge fund manager?
That really just I have interest in that. Like I have a stock app on my phone. I just look at that for like hours a day.
Right.
It's just interesting. Just
well,
stuff like that.
There are different algorithms that manage or model what is actually happening on the stock market. And those guys that are doing like hedge fund managing and stuff like that, most of those guys started off being trained as engineers because they got a lot of math in their background, so they could actually do that work. That's why a lot of engineers like myself don't go into like R&D. They go into finance because there's a lot more money in it. And like I actually had a job offer at Price Waterhouse as an analyst because of my science background. They're actually looking for scientists to do that work because it's all about making money. So you need to know this math in order to do that. So there you go. But anyway, let's go back to the question. Sorry, dude. So we're going to switch the x and the y. So this is 2 over y minus 2 plus 3. And now we're going to resolve that equation for y. And let me erase all the rest of this stuff.
That just ruined my future.
Just learn the math. You'll be okay. Just learn the math. The God honest truth is, if you know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, you can do advanced calculus. You just need to know the rules. Yeah. But it's all adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. That's all you're actually doing. Mm-hmm. No matter what I write up here, it's just add, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. It just looks funny. Okay.
It does. Agree.
All right, so which number am I going to move first?
3.
Okay, so move the 3.
So minus 3.
Now what?
Don't you have to do something with the 2?
Yep, you got to move the 2. So how do I move the 2 across the equal sign? Divide. I'm just going to do that and then put a 1 there.
Yeah.
Right. Remember, when you're moving that, it doesn't become a 0, it becomes a 1. What did I do last time?
Isn't that a 3 and then not a 2?
Where?
Underneath. Shouldn't it be x minus 3 over 2? Or over 3?
Look at it. It's x. Okay, so I moved this 3 first.
Yeah.
And then I divided by 2, so I put the 2 in the bottom there.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have the exact same thing I have. What are you looking?
No, but I wrote 3 because I thought that I had to do that.
Okay, because we just moved the 2 and put it down, right? It was on the top of this fraction here, and so I moved it to the bottom of that fraction there. I just moved it down.
Oh, yeah, we did have... Oh,
we had a 2 there, right?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why I wrote 3. Okay.
Next thing that we can do. Do you remember what I did last time?
Not really.
How do I put this y up top? How do I put this whole thing? Because I need to move it up there.
Flip it?
So we have to, if I flip this side, what do I have to do to this side?
Keep that? Oh,
flip it. So you're flipping both sides. And I'll put the over 1 if you want me to. It's actually not there anymore.
I just registered it.
Okay. I'm going to get rid of that because you might get confused by that, because if you divide anything by 1, it's not there anymore, right? And then it makes it easier for me to see what I need to do on my next step.
Okay.
So what do I have to do on my last step if I want to get y by itself?
You have to move the -2 or cancel it.
Right. So how do I move then? What happens to this -2 if I move it across the equal sign? What does it become?
A positive.
A positive 2. So we got
+2.
Yeah. So x minus 3 and then plus 2. And that's equal to y. And so this y would be written as f of x inverse.
Okay. Why do you have to put the -1? Like, why is that?
Because it is the reverse of this.
Oh, okay.
Right? You had f of x as your original thing, and the inverse means that I switch the x and the y. So if you look at this, let's look at it a piece at a time. First, I was adding by 3, right? Mm-hmm. What am I doing here?
Subtracting by 3.
I was, I guess that's actually the only other thing, because you have a 2 there, you have a 2 there, so we switched the places. I was subtracting 2 here, and now I'm doing what to the 2 there? Adding it. So it's kind of the reverse.
Okay.
And that's why you put that negative sign there, because it means it's the reverse of it, or the inverse of it.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to do our check, which is this. So where do I plug? This is going to get kind of funky. Where do I plug that in?
As the x.
As the x here. So let's do that. So I have 2 over, and then this is 2x minus 3 plus 2.
That's, oh, yeah.
And then this is plus 3.
Oh, crap, I didn't see that.
All right, let's see if we can get this stuff to cancel out. So
what about that -2? Where does that go?
Oh, -2. Yeah, good catch. Because that goes down there with the rest of that. Oh, which is going to make our life a whole lot easier. Good catch. Okay, so let's simplify this part. So I have a +2 there and I have a -2 there. What happens to those two?
They cancel.
They cancel out. So I'm left with 2 over 2 x minus 3 and then plus 3. What does that line mean?
To divide.
So I'm going to write them side by side.
Okay. I thought it's x minus 3.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Good catch again. All right. Okay, so what do I do with the fraction and the...
Keep change flip.
Mm-hmm.
Keep.
Two 2's cancel.
Mm-hmm.
What about the 2 3's?
They can also cancel.
They also cancel. So what am I left with?
An x.
So that means we did it right.
Sounded like it was coming from over there.
Okay. All right. Let's try this one. All right, see if you can do this one. Always work from the outside in. So what is the furthest number away from the y?
-2.
That's the one you got to move first.
Oh, yeah, crap. I keep on forgetting. Divide by 4.
Divide by 4. So this 4 moves down there.
-1.
You made the same mistake again. What did you forget? When the 4 moves, what number does it leave behind?
1.
A 1. So this should be 1 over y plus 1.
Oh, yes. I thought it's -1.
Plus, right?
Oh, I wrote a minus this whole time. No, you caught my mistake.
That's what we're here for.
Okay. So now we have to cancel something, don't we?
You have to move the y up. So how are you going to move the y up to the numerator? What do you have to do?
Flip it?
Flip it. So hey man, I'll call you back in like 5 minutes, okay? All right, later. All right. So flip.
So y over x plus 2 equals 1 over y plus 1.
If I'm flipping this side, and that should be 1, right? That should be y plus 1.
We're flipping both of them?
You got to flip both sides.
Oh, okay.
If you flip one side, you have to do it to the other side.
Okay. Alright. So then, now we can cancel. Can't we? No, we can't.
Okay.
So
That's a 4, right? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wait. Should make that a 4. Okay.
Hey, what is the only number that's attached to the y now?
The 1.
So it has to be moved. So how do you move it?
Subtract 1.
Mm-hmm.
Then we gotta subtract 1 to the 4, right?
You subtract 1 from the whole thing, so I write it like that.
Oh, yeah, you write it out. Okay, so x plus 2 minus 1 equals y over 1.
And what's another way of writing y?
X. No.
F of x.
Yeah, f of x and the negative 1.
And the negative 1. Okay, prove that those are inverses of one another.
How would I?
Okay. So when you go home tonight, I will make sure that I post these before I go to the beach.
Okay.
I want you to try each one of these again so you can get in the habit of doing this. So this whole thing gets plugged in for x. There. So we're doing f of x inverse. It's called a composite function. And this would be 4 over, this is 4x minus 2 minus 1 plus 1 minus 2. Those two cancel.
I'm gonna get left over with a 1 and
Did you forget this 2 over here?
yeah, I did.
Because that's the same mistake I made last time.
Yeah, those negative 2's canceled and you just have x.
You just have x left, right?
Yeah.
So I'll show it here. This is times x minus 2 over 4 minus 2. Those two cancel. Sorry, plus 2. It's supposed to be plus.
So I really just need to like examine everything I do basically and basically look over it. Make sure I didn't leave anything out.
Make sure you didn't leave anything out. So those all cancel. Okay. So we are... Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is composite functions, which is kind of the same thing that we were just doing there. But practice working on inverses and remembering the steps for it.